Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are here following on from the absolutely devastating chapter we got the other week. And boy, does this one also not disappoint as well. So, without further ado, chapter 1190. One whose death is celebrated. And the cover story request is a much younger Shanks and much younger Luffy eating some fish with like a bunch of cats. Very wholesome, very nice. I love the sort of setup here of what we're alluding to with what's about to happen in this chapter, specifically the connection of Shanks and Luffy here. But nevertheless, we have a chapter to discuss. So, last we had left off, we got Luffy being absolutely dominated by Eam. Sheer, overwhelming power. Swords plunged through Luffy's chest, a total of two. He was pinned to a tree, and there was nothing he could do to resist. He had tried to land a hit and Eam gave him zero opening. Eam was hugely overwhelming and is truly demonstrating why he's currently the king of the world. And we watched as people were wondering, what's going to happen. Usopp felt the Haki go down first of Luffy's, and then Jinbei followed. And they were talking about who this guy actually was. Like, what is this person who showed up? Like, what is his significance? And Loki begins to recall because Hyrule and the rest have showed up now down where they were on the branch. And he says, look, and he recalls back to what Shanks had told him way, way, way back during when Harold had just died, that there is a bigger enemy here, that there is a king of the world, that a war is coming, and it is our job to prepare for it. It's the only thing we can do because we're not ready yet. So, flash forward, and now Loki's starting to connect the dots now of who this guy actually is and the ramifications of this person here. And we watched as while Eam was just talking about, how despicable Luffy's name is. He was slandering Ace and Sabo, really going like mental, emotional, like damage towards Luffy, like really kicking him while he's down. And he summoned an axe and he was like, oh, it's a shame I've got this axe, but this will be the third weapon you've got to take. And at this point, we jumped over to Summer and Zoro fighting. And Summer was recalling or retelling Zorro here, the 800 years ago story of, what these omens or what these weapons actually are. And they are a mythical, almost legendary tiered weapon of the original founding nations of the 19 nations of the world government. And the Great One has such power that he can summon those weapons through the omen. And we are grateful, he said, that between the high up holy families, he can basically allow them access to a weapon. So Summer's family, the Shepherd family, got Graham, and we saw Killingham had the Longinus spear, and it was really cool. They were completely going back and forth with Zoro and Sanji in their respective fights, and it doesn't look good for them either, I don't think, because just on top of them already being well trained Holy Knights, they've now got a weapon from Eames' own like gifting. It is really bad. But we jump back, and the final pages were Eam ready to swing down on Luffy, who was pinned to a tree, and Gabon jumps in to save him. So we pick up recoil of attack. We see Gabon in his lovely summer shirt. He's still weakened from the attack from Gunko here, so he's not at like 100% fighting fit, and he is a pretty old dude. But nevertheless, him and he, fly back, and the recoil of just this attack alone splinters the tree behind. The swords come flying out of Luffy, clats to the ground. Luffy falls, and we see Ian goes to swing another hit before Gabon instantaneously like jumps into the sky and is like, dude, this is such a like disgusting form you've taken. Like, no wonder, don't even want to know like what type of being you are. I've never actually seen someone like you before. And Eam questions who this guy is. So he doesn't yet know. He's like, who's this old dude that's just rocked up? And Gabon says he is someone who understands the world. Because the big takeaway we still need to remember is that Gabon was there at Laugh Tale. He saw it. He knows. He was there amongst the laughter. He knows the secrets. He knows why they were too early. And he's been ready for this moment. Not specifically this moment, but ready for Luffy, the moment to finally come forward where it was the right time. So he'd land. Dude's just now just aura farming here, and we see he looks over and just sees Luffy just like screaming in pain. Two sword wounds to the chest, blood everywhere. He's no longer losing that life force from the sword, but he looks beaten up. This is one of the worst we've seen Luffy in a while, and rightfully so. He's just took two sword attacks from Eam, plus all the other attacks that he had prior. So he's pretty roughed up. And Gabon doesn't care. Gabon literally picks him up by the scruff of his shirt and is like, get a grip, Luffy. You're such a disappointment. An injured old man had to come and save you. And Luffy's like screaming in pain more, like the blood is just dripping down his whole body. And he's like, do you not have any shame? He's like, you got this shiny white form. You became an emperor of the sea. And now you've gotten cocky. And Luffy's like, please let me go, like screaming at him like it hurts. And he's like, I'm not gonna die here. This isn't how it's gonna go. Like, I'm fine, I can do this. And he's like, let me go, let me go. And he's like, you're pathetic. You may as well be dead, because do you know what will happen if you do die? And Luffy gives him such a look now, and a beautiful shot of Elbaf while all this chaos is going on. And he's like, I won't be able to save my friend's home if he was to die here. And he's like, that's right, you wouldn't be. And what will happen to your crew? You know, you're putting them in a very bad situation if you were to die. They'd be in danger. And he's like, you need to remember that as you rise up in this sea, the number of enemies you are going to have will increase. And he says, the king of the pirates, that title, is reserved for one whose death is celebrated. Because everyone wants that title, everyone wants that position. So when the king of the pirates dies, everyone rejoices, because then the title's free for the taking. So he's like, if you think any part of this was going to be fun, was going to be easy, a stroll in the park, just go home. And he's telling Luffy straight, and this is the strong arm he needed now. Yeah, he's had his fun. That's his whole character. He's very carefree, very straightforward, Luffy. This is the reality check now that he needs to be like, oh no, this point in the story now, this stage, the final stretch of becoming the king of the pirates, you need to be serious. Because if you're not cut out for this, then you're just in the way. And he just launches, doesn't care of the damage he's taken, the situation. Eam is just stood watching this all unfold. Zero emotion, no expression, just watches this old man fight him off with two axes, turn around and pick up who he thinks is Joy Boy, even though he's now heard him called Luffy. Throws him away down far away on the branch. Still within range to see what's happening, I guess. But it is now, Gabon is well in between him and Eam here. And Luffy's like, right, He keeps running his mouth. I'm going to show him like that old fart. And we watch as Gabon just jumps straight into action, zero hesitation, doesn't care who he's up against now. Starts throwing out this like mantis axe attack. Eam is just blocking it. It's like, is this a joke? Are you having a jest with me? And Gabon says, you really want to kill him, don't you? And Eam agrees, and he's like, look, he reminds you of someone. He reminds you of Joy Boy. And Eam like snap for a moment. Someone's a like the axe goes away into the side before he does grab the axe again. And he summons another weapon. This dude has decided that what Gabon has just said to him was so far past like anything that he's just rage baited him that now he pulls out a second weapon of Honbani Toshiro, or the Bone Eater sword. It is this cool sort of katana like sword with like a swirling like black spirit around it. So he wields the sword, picks the axe up. Now, just like Gabon, the two of them are dual blading, and we watch as he goes to slash forward, and the serpent like spirit also wraps around Gabon and like attacks. And it is Gabon saying, I know of all this because I have learned from Joy Boy's own words. So Eam is obviously furious at this fact, and they're trying to figure out, who is this dude? What does he know? And Gabon is like, whoa, 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 slow down, though. Don't get me wrong. I have no intention of chasing his words. A person long since, like, gone in the past. I've never seen him, but I just want to see my captain's dream to the end. That's what I'm going to do. And Eam is coughing blood. So he starts to like cough. We see the blood. He catches it on his arm, and he's like, "Your captain?" And he's like, "Who is your captain?" And we can see Luffy in the meantime is like screaming for someone to heal him. Even just a bit. This old man's looking down on him. I can finally be useful. And there's a moment where it flashes back to Gabon, and he just looks at Eve dead in the eye and says, "The king of the pirates, Goldie Roger." And it dawns on him, and Ian thinks back to when he was declared king of the pirates a while back when, and he's telling the five elders, he's like, why is a D of all people being called king of the pirates? His name is not allowed to be spread any further. Put him in his place, type of thing. And he's like, oh, that's right. The one who ushered in the golden age of piracy. Um, why would a former crewmate of his protect Straw Hat Luffy? Like, what do you gain from this? And Gabon is so good for this, like, so quick witted to say, well, you're trying so hard to get rid of him. So, doesn't that explanation seem the most obvious? You know, when you declared a kid like that such a threat, and he's thinking back to when they were sailing away from Laugh Tale, when Goldie Rogers telling his crew, eventually someone will come that will be born, they will surpass us. We were just too early. And he says, you may have well just announced that he's going to be the one that we've been waiting for. And we flash to Rayleigh, we see Crocus, Odin, Whitebeard, Shanks. Luffy is the person that they've been waiting for. And Eve's just confirmed it. And he even agrees, he's like, you know what? You got me. Valid point. I was too hasty, foolish. I simply mistook a numerous number of like coincidences for fate. But we'll just end it here. And he goes to ready up another omen sigil, and we see a flame appear on Luffy's chest, and Gabon catches it. He's like, "Oh, damn it!" Jumps into the air and doesn't like talk to Eam now. He speaks to Adam Tree. He's like, "Treasure Tree Adam, so sorry, didn't want to have to do this, but this is really gonna hurt me as well." He's like, "My joints are gonna ache. Every bit of my like body is screaming. It's so run down, but I'm gonna have to do this. And we can see now Luffy's realizing who this guy is, because again, he hadn't told Luffy until this point that he was a part of Roger's crew, and as Luffy says, he was one of Rayleigh's closest friends. And as Ian goes to attack Kambudo, there is a massive wave of conquerors in the sky as Gaban splits the tree. He devours the whole branch that they are stood upon, and he just completely disintegrates the branch. We see he readies up again, huge conqueror's wave of haki coming from the both of them, and we see they both launch attacks. Gabon does an 8,000 slash grim throng, and we just see he just decimates the whole branch. But not before we see the Bone Eater sword fly up and strike Gabon in the sky. We see Eam takes this hit. He's certainly got like some blood on him. We see he's starting to bleed now down past his eye, and he's like facing a very fierce opponent here. And the whole branch begins to fall into the realm of the dead and crashes against all the mountains down there. Everyone's still back at the Sun Realm, like that's around Loki at the minute. Recoils with the fact of like, what was that explosion? Who was that? Like, is it Luffy? And they're like, no, like there's someone else over there, someone overwhelmingly strong who is fighting that guy. And we go back, and the final shot of this chapter is Gabon on the floor, axes spread around him, and he has lost his left arm. Severed off to one side, the Bone Eater has done its job and has cut away his left hand. And Luffy reacts, screaming for Gabon. The chapter concludes, and this is now the second member of the Roger Pirates to have lost their left arm protecting Luffy. So no wonder the cover art was of Shanks and Luffy, because this is now another member of that crew that has protected Luffy and has got him to where he is today. And this setup is so sad because like Gabon is given everything now to try and defend Luffy, and it like Luffy's face over this chapter has gotten better. He's somehow come to after like all the recoil of damage. We see more of his face at the end here now as he screams for Gabon. But that was such a even quicker fight than what we've just seen of Luffy. A whole fight where he got Eam to bleed, but Gabon lost an arm for it. So whether we're going to see, some magic or, healing like Gerd and Chopper were able to do when Stanza lost his leg, and, we saw Gerd lose her fingers but got reattached really quickly. Are we going to see Gabon get his arm back, or are we going to see something more? But we're clearly getting to a point now where Eames not going to be around much longer. He was already coughing up blood. He's now sort of blood dripping from his head. He's taken some damage, and this body that he's brought here can't stay much longer. At least that's what the theories are. Whether he's going to cause more harm is likely to be seen, but it certainly was devastating to see Gabon give his arm, give his all for this attack where he definitely isn't down, but now that Luffy's probably going to try again, maybe. But Gabon is definitely out of commission unless he's going to stand back up again. Things are looking worse than ever. So, who knows where we go next chapter? Maybe some Summer and Sanji before we come back here. We don't know, but let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. See you guys next time. Bye.